into the Badlands episode 4, Two Tigers Subdue Dragons. As usual, a very amazing action based episode. I mean, every episode is an action based episode, but really good action, really good story elements as well. We get to meet a new character who's basically like the complete ruler, apparently, of all the water in the land, I guess. I don't know by the end. But the interesting thing about this episode was really about MK. Like, those were the most interesting moments, aside from Ryder's portion, where he was kind of doing the parley stuff and his own ideas. But MK gets two targets painted on him by the end of this episode. The first one we already knew was from the Widow, but now we have Ryder, who officially knows this is who, this is what the Widow wants. So he knows who MK is. He saw the amulet and everything. So he knows who he is. Then, of course, we have Sunny, who obviously knows who MK is. And we find out that MK slaughtered a bunch of people on this boat. And that was kind of what led to him kind of being with these other people in the first episode. He kills off all these other cogs. I'm sure he got into a fight. He may have tripped and scratched a finger or something. But he snapped and destroyed everyone. There's blood up and down the walls, across all the chains and everything. He killed a ton of people. And he cost this guy a lot of money. So target number 2 is now placed in Sunny's lap. And of course, I think we all know that nothing's going to happen to MK because he's one of the main characters. And we know, of course, Sunny being Sunny, despite how much he cares and how much he wants to save his girlfriend and his child, he's not going to do that to MK. Something's going to happen where it all kind of works out in the end and he won't have to kill him. But at the same time, with this being his price to pay to get passage, across the water, that'll probably be the way that they keep it going, beyond the first season, where of course they don't end up escaping. So that's probably how it'll play out, but at the same time, with people knowing who MK is and him having, this wanted poster, it makes me wonder if this guy's gonna, at some point, be like, well, Sunny didn't do it, but maybe he'll get a bit of info or something like that, and he'll find out exactly where he is, and he'll just send his own people. He had at least 2 bodyguards. He could have more people. He was supposed to have his own cogs, so that means he has land somewhere, in some way, shape, or form. He has a place for basically slaves, to run for him. So he has money, he has people. So it seems like at some point, he could easily do that if he got tired of waiting and he just wanted to see MK get killed. He could send out his own little group of people. But these 2 targets mean a lot. We only have 2 more episodes as well, which really sucks. But we're already coming up on the season finale. I forgot, it's been a while since I've really watched this show where it's like, alright, here's the whole first season and it's like 6 episodes. I forget shows do that, even though I've been watching a bunch of new shows. They're all, regular network shows. It's like, oh, it'll be 9 episodes or it'll be 13 for a season. But it's really rare now to see a show where it's just like, nope, boom, this is how many episodes we got. 6 episodes, we're done, and that's pretty much it. So I was like, oh, when because I'd seen that before I saw this episode, I was like, that sucks. That, we're so incredibly close to the end of the season. But he has these 2 targets painted on him. I don't really know what to expect from that, outside of the fact that Sunny's going to be going up against Ryder, and that, the whole dynamic within Quinn's camp is just all crap. It's all messed up. It's like it's Quinn at the top. He's hated by everyone, pretty much, period. Then we have Sunny, who kind of wants to get away from Quinn, and then we have Ryder, who wants to take over, for Quinn. Then we have Lydia, who hates both Quinn and his new wife, and then we have Jade, the new wife, who's freaking out now because Ryder's like, oh, you think you're so tough. So did Beatrice, who we find out was Ryder's second wife, who is not in the show because she died, and apparently she was poisoned because Lydia don't play that crap. So now we have Jade, who's freaking out. I don't know if that means she's going to try to, act first and try to take out Lydia, or what that means for her character. But, this is the episode, because it was in the trailer, but this is the episode where Lydia does talk to her, and she's like, look, you shouldn't sleep with a Baron and his son, and of course Jade's like freaked out that she knows that, and it's like, just be careful or whatever, and then she's kind of just like words of wisdom, and she, that's it. So there's just a lot of turmoil in the whole camp. Issues abound, of course, and then we have the widow, who was great in this episode. Like, every plan she had was perfect. Like, it was seriously pitch perfect. Like, they attack the convoy, kill one of Quinn's clippers, sets everything up for Jacobee so that he thinks that Quinn attacked the place. Then, during the parley, she sends Tilda. Boom, here comes an axe, flying at Quinn. All out battle, which was very awesome, but I thought it was really funny because I'm like, they're just killing people left and right, and it's like, alright, it gets down to Quinn, Jacobee, and then, I wish I could remember her name, but Jacobee's regent, Zephyr. So it gets down to the three of them, and I'm like, I know exactly what's about to happen, and here comes, Sunny at the last minute around the corner, like, wait, boom. It was the widow, and it's just like, there's like 10 dead people. It's like, oh, widow blows, huh? Alright, see you guys. And I knew that was going to happen, and it was just really funny. Like, well, sorry I killed your people. You killed my people. Turns out we got duped, and they just go their separate ways. And I was like, it wasn't even remotely meant to be funny, but I'm like, there was nothing. It was like, oh, guess we didn't need to fight. And it was like, well, you deal with this issue, and they just leave, and that's it. And I'm like, man, Quinn killed a bunch of people, Jacobee killed a bunch of people, Zephyr killed people, Sunny, I don't think Sunny killed anybody. I think he like punched a guy or something, and then he was chasing after Tilda. And then there was the other guy, who kind of came, behind Sunny during that scene as well. I was like, oh, well, he's alive too. And then when they were actually walking back, they had even more people, so I was surprised. I really thought it was just going to end up being like the Colts, Sunny, Quinn, and then the other guy. I was like, there's not going to be like any actual Clippers left, but they still had some people left over. But I thought that was kind of funny how they did that. MK going into like his crazy, like almost superpower demon mode twice in one episode, very cool. We got to see Sunny test him in the beginning, which was to try to help him out and say like, hey, once you go into this mode, try to fight it, and that'll be the best way for me to know exactly what's happening when you go into this sort of dark, blank space. So it doesn't work with Sunny, but we do see it work with Tilda at the end, which was a very cool scene when she threw that, and it was really cool. It's like, oh crap, that's the scene that they always show where, she like kneels down and throws it, and I was like, this is the moment, and it hits him in the face, and they have the craziest relationship because they both know the secrets. Like, she doesn't, scratch him to begin with, but now she knows the truth, and I think she's still gonna hide that secret, even though she knows that the widow was right. I think she's still gonna keep that secret because they have this really odd sort of like, they kind of help each other, but at the same time it's like, hey, what the heck are you doing? You almost started a whole war, and MK doesn't exactly trust the widow's idea. Of course, turning the Badlands into a war zone, it isn't exactly the best thing in the world. It doesn't really sound that great. So of course he doesn't really like the widow, but he doesn't want to hurt Tilda. And of course, after he gets scratched, he kind of has no control, but he does stop it. And before he takes her down, he does get control. And of course, Sunny sees that, so it's gonna play a part in the next episode, which it seemed like that's what the scene was. One of the little clips in the promo was that MK seemed to hit Sunny and he fell off the top of the wall. So I think that was him making him bleed again, because there was another clip where he kicked him so hard he fell to the ground. So I'm like, I'm assuming the training is to get him to bleed again so that he can try to go up against him while he's in like his crazy state again. But I certainly love that. I also love just the fact that we actually got to see MK and Tilda fight, because Tilda, she had a couple of scenes. Mostly it was like the one scene that she had where the widow was proving like, hey, if one of my daughters can beat one of your guys, then you work for me. And Tilda had that fight scene. But other than that, she really hasn't had too many fight scenes. Like, she, throws the little butterfly shuriken, and that's kind of it. That's kind of been like her thing. She's always there during the battles, but she's rarely involved in them. So it was actually kind of awesome. I was like, this is pretty cool. This is really the first time we've actually seen MK fight and Tilda fight, because when MK bled the first time, it was like, alright, he went into his little demon mode, but that wasn't really a fight. He got punched and, he bled, or like he got cut or something. I can't remember exactly how he bled the very first time, but it was like one hit and the guy made him bleed, and then boom, he killed that guy, and that was pretty much it. So we don't really get to see him fight, and I thought this was actually cool. It was really, just hand to hand for both of them, because she doesn't actually have blades, she only has the shuriken, and he didn't really use his sword, so it was really hand to hand. I was like, this is cool to see them fight, because they don't really get their own sort of focused fight scenes, and of course it's them against each other for the first time, and that's like their first big fights, and I was like, that's actually, really cool. So I certainly enjoyed that. As always, like I said, action, very good, very fun. Trying to think of like a really big moment that really stood out. I think the MK versus Tilda thing was really cool, just because it was like, even though MK technically did have the fight from like the first episode, I don't really count that as a fight, because it was really only there to serve as, boom, he activated this crazy thing that, gets revealed by the end of the episode, and then he knocks the guy out. So I don't count that as his first fight. So this is really it, and technically it definitely was Tilda's second fight, but it actually lasted. It was like actual counters and stuff, because I think she took that guy out. I think her fighting against a grown man was much faster than when she actually fought MK, because she basically, it was like, alright, dodge, dodge, and then she did that crazy spin and snapped his neck, and it was like, alright, fight's over, I'm out of here. And the fight with MK actually lasted much longer before she, threw the shuriken. So still, kind of first, because it was like her first actual long fight, which was still longer. Even the very first one was longer than what MK did with, punch and, throw the mirror, which is still cool. We haven't seen anything like that again, where he does like a crazy slow motion thing and he just grabs something just out of the air that should be like flying past him and just like boom, and whips it right back. But still really cool. And I was like, man, when she did that, I was so excited to see what would happen, because not only would she get the official answer like, oh crap, he really does have this crazy ability, but we also get to see what he's gonna do. And I was like, oh, she's about to figure this out, and she's gonna get attacked, like she's gonna get messed up a bit. Unfortunately, of course, I knew she wasn't gonna actually die, but she does some good dodging for sure. But I think she took like one hit straight to the chest, and she like throws the jar, and it's just like, poof, and it just breaks on him. It's like he's like crazy Terminator mode or something. It was pretty cool. So certainly loved the episode. We get the crazy plan at the end. Ryder taking what he feels he deserves and trying to get Quinn out of the way as the Baron. He goes for the parley. He finds out that it's not going to end up being Jacobee, but Zephyr is actually working for the Widow. So Zephyr wants Jacobee's territory. The Widow, of course, wants MK, and Ryder, of course, wants Quinn's territory. So now we have the three of them working together. He knows, like I said, he knows who MK is. He knows exactly which boy to go for. That's going to lead him up against Sunny. The Widow shows up in the next episode, so I'm assuming Ryder instantly gets that information back to her somehow. So I'm really looking forward to this next one. One thing that happened in this episode that I was really happy about was actually towards the end, when they go back and they find out that, things are weird. It's like all the cogs are not in the field and the clippers on top of the wall are gone. I was really worried that when they were going through, they were in, and I of course can't remember the guy's name, but they got Sunny's former, or I guess the former region, Sunny's former, I guess master. I forgot what they call, like, because I know MK is Sunny's cult, but I guess they don't really have a name for, the Clippers, but like the former regent, the guy who has the birds, of course. I thought they were going to his place, and I thought he would be dead, and I was like, that would really suck if that's what happens. Unfortunately, that didn't, because I actually like him, because he's nice to Sunny, and he's, obviously he's the guy who cares, and he's like, look, I'll give you this, and it'll get you, a meeting with this guy, and that's totally against the rules, but he's such a cool guy. I'm like, I really hope it's not his house and he's not just dead in his chair. Unfortunately, he wasn't. So that was a nice little happy moment for me, because I was like, crap, he's the only other Clipper in the entire show that really has any sort of focus. To be totally honest, he's the only other Clipper outside of Sunny, and I was glad to see that he wasn't dead, and so that was nice. Also, Quinn had an actual human moment where he gave the woman back the little piece of gold, like, this is for your loyalty. And I swear I thought he was going to go to the next room and be like, Sonny, kill her. I seriously thought he was going to do that like he did, of course I'm forgetting names again, but like he did with the one girl's parents. So glad to see that that didn't actually take place, but it was a really fun episode. Great little crazy war battle in a cemetery. Looking forward to, 2 more episodes. I don't know what to really think. I mean, with Widow going up against Sunny again, I have to assume that that means Ryder does get the info to her, like, this is who he is, this is exactly what he looks like, plain and simple. I'm pretty sure she had, actually, no, she didn't. I don't think she had that wanted poster, so I don't think she knows. She definitely doesn't know that MK is the boy that she's looking for. She just knows him by the amulet, but everyone else knows him by the wanted poster, and so once a writer gets the wanted poster, it'll be like, this is who you're looking for, and that might lead to the scene where we get the Widow kind of going up against Tilda. And they already had a little confrontation in this moment, or in this episode really early on, but it kind of, died down pretty fast, and this might bring it right back up, like, you tested him, you cut his face and nothing happened, so something's off. And she could easily lie and say, like, well, I don't know why it didn't work that time, but it, worked this time. But we'll see how that plays out. And I'm glad I mentioned the scene where they have their argument, because in this episode, they kind of establish where this world is as far as time. And I thought that was very interesting, because they do a couple of different things. There are 2 really big moments that show the world that they live in isn't what I thought it was. I initially just assumed it's kind of just this kind of made up universe, and it's just like, well, obviously it's kind of like slave times, just to be totally honest. That's what it is, really what it is. It's like southern slave times. And I was like, okay, it's that mixed with samurai culture and, katanas and things like that, and all sorts of hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. And then this episode changed that, because they have not only records in this episode, which did exist, during that time period in real life, but there was the moment when Sunny got the little toy soldier. It was like, alright, that could have existed back in the day, which I'm sure it did, but there was also, like, the little, there's the Swiss Army knife, and there are also dog tags. So both of those, once again, same thing. I don't know when dog tags, like, first came into existence, but there was something else that they showed during that scene before they played the record, and it made me realize that this may actually be like a weird sort of future where, and this is like probably a bad reference for anyone who doesn't watch anime, but it kind of made me think of the anime Attack on Titan, where it's very old colonial style, like all the houses are brick and wood and stuff like that. It's like castle structures, but it's set way in the future after everything's kind of fallen apart. So there's like very minute bits of technology that are more advanced than what we have now, but everything else is like, it seems like it's way back in like the 1200s or crazy stuff like that. So it kind of made me think of that, because they do have cars. They have all different types of cars, which the first episode was, by the very end, it kind of had like a 20s moment where it was like the car was sort of a fancy car that seemed like it could be from the 20s. And then in this episode, we kind of had like the army truck, and it's like, well, that could be kind of from any time period. And then we have stuff like the record, which is very, I kind of associate that, I don't know why, but for some reason I associate that with the 50s, which I guess because that's when everyone really had music, so it was our record. So I associate it with the 50s, even though that came out way before that for some reason. That's what was in my head. But that, like I said, that does fit with the time, and Swiss Army Knife probably accurate in Army Men and everything, but it made it seem like it wasn't just, an alternate kind of mashed up timeline. It seemed like it could have actually been, somehow from here to the future, and guns did exist. So, they don't really give us a great timeline as far as how long ago they had guns and things like that. Um, I think early on in the scene there may have been a TV or there was something in that opening scene when they had the record. There was something in that room that I can't remember that was like, that's like really, really modern and something that they hadn't shown, because that, when they were in the house and clearing it out, there's definitely something else. I wish I could remember what it was. I wish I had my remote over here. I'll probably add in the annotations if there was something else, because I feel like there was something else that they don't really focus on it, but they just show it, and I could easily be only thinking of the record. Hopefully there was something else, otherwise I'm just making up stuff, but it kind of made an official timeline. As far as I was concerned, it kind of seemed like, certainly in the future, they, like, even by the end, they're at like a factory, and it's like, there's a tanker in the water. They go to an actual tanker, which, once again, they had tankers back. No, they didn't. They didn't have tankers during slavery time. So that's one of those things. So it's like stuff in the future. They had guns. Guns have been abolished. All sorts of blades and things like that. So it was interesting. It was something I noticed. Totally irrelevant, I'm sure, to anything in the series. It could become relevant if they actually talk about guns, because they never mention guns in the show. That was like a big thing with the trailer. It was like guns have been abolished, but they never actually say that, and they haven't said that in the show yet, where they really talk about what guns used to be and why they were abolished, and kind of how all of this Baron stuff even got started. So there's a lot of lore in this world that obviously can't really be explained just in the couple episodes we've had, but it was interesting seeing that. I was like, man, they're just little stuff in this episode I was actually paying attention to, like, well, that stands out from this era, that's from this era, and that's from here. Maybe this is a weird, it's not post-apocalyptic, but it's a very weird, downgraded, technology version, or technology version of the future. So, something that caught my eye. I don't know if, I know I rambled on about that, nothing to really do with the episode, but it was something that really caught my attention, and it really got me thinking, like, maybe this isn't just, a random mash of, different eras and times. It's actually meant to be a weird version of the future that kind of reverts to the past and stuff like that. So, something I wanted to talk about, because it definitely caught my attention after that first scene, and then I kept noticing other weird little stuff throughout the episode. But I want to know what you guys thought about this one. Sorry I rambled on. Like, I think that was 10 minutes of this was just me talking about possibilities of timelines. But I want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what you guys think is going to actually happen with this weird three-way plan that we have between Zephyr, Ryder, and the Widow. We know MK isn't going to die. That's like the one thing. So that almost kind of takes out automatically Ryder and the Widow's plans. But at the same time, there was that scene early on where Sunny was like, we might need to find the Widow in order to escape. And I feel like that's still a possibility. They haven't really had time to discuss things because it's always, fight. So I feel like they could still have that moment within these next two episodes. And I don't know if they will or they won't. But Sunny might kind of go back to it and be like, man, if she does take out Quinn, I'm kind of free. So, there is that thing. And he does tell his girlfriend, I swear I wish I could remember her name right now. She's so important to the story, but I just can't draw her name out of my head right now. But he does tell her, you shouldn't kill him faster because we're on the brink of war. And if he officially does die, that would just bring war 100%. All the barons would come in and try to fill in that vacuum, and then just mass chaos. So he does tell her, like, don't kill him off faster. We do find out there is no cure. She totally lied and was like, well, there's nothing I can do. I just told him, basically, we can try. So she's doing it the smart way and not getting herself killed. unfortunately, like her parents. But I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.